Hello. My name is Gail Seiler, and I am honored to be here on behalf of Betrayal Project USA. Thank you for joining us. We are a victim-led organization dedicated to exposing institutional betrayal, honoring those who were killed in both the protocols and the shots, and we're dedicated to also pursuing justice for crimes committed under the guise of public health. You can learn more about our work and victims and view the victim stories or get involved by volunteering at betrayalprojectusa.org. Betrayalprojectusa.org. You can submit your story and do an interview just like this. You can also follow us on Rumble, BitChute, and X, formerly Twitter, by searching for Betrayal Project USA, or our Twitter is at betrayal_PROG. Today I have the privilege of speaking with Ellie Hayes, whose brother Andy, James Hodge, they call him Andy, was killed in a hospital in Kentucky. Ellie, first of all, I want to thank you for being here and telling Andy's story, and for all of the work that you do in raising awareness, but also for having the moral courage to share this story publicly. So let's start from the beginning. So tell us a little bit about who your brother was and what kind of a person he was.
He was a big-hearted, big kid who loved his sister. He trusted me with, you could say, his life. I don't know. He was just a fun-loving guy who, if you're not smiling when you're around him and you first get there, you're going to be laughing by the time you leave. He'll make sure of it. Even on his worst day, he just liked to make people smile. He liked to, I think, half the time find out all the good that he could find in a bad situation. He would go on about anything bad that would happen, the good that we could make out of it. He was a plumber, a dad. He was a brother. He was a friend, a son, and an uncle. And now he's a Paul. He never got to experience that.
His grandkids.
Yeah, Annie and Ace. But that picture right there, that's us. I mean, you don't get perfect by no means, but you get us all, and what you see is what you get. And we're loud, and we argue, but we get right on over it. It's not even an argument. It's discussion is what we like to call it. I made him do silly things like take selfies. That's our last picture together.
Mm-hmm.
At these pictures, it just hit me that's the very last one that we'll ever have.
And he looks incredibly happy to be taking that Wi-Fi or that selfie.
He was not happy at all. He was like, I'm not doing it. And I'm like, yes, get over here. And he joked. He just didn't like to take pictures. But you know what? He knew I wanted that picture. I guess subconsciously, maybe he knew what was coming. Who knows? I just know that picture is special.
He did it out of love, right?
He did it because I wanted him to do it. Andy, he couldn't give you a lot in money. So he liked to build things. Like, I wanted a fire pit outside, and I just thought they were pretty. We liked to be outside. So Broken, the kids keep coming in, and they're like, "Don't come out." And of course, I'm definitely going to go out.
Yeah.
Go out the door, and Andy's like, "You're not supposed to come out." And I'm like, "Okay, that's what the kid said, so I'm definitely coming out." And he was building a rock fire pit beside the house that I now have. He had posted it on Facebook. He was proud of it. And he said he built it for me. He said he couldn't do a lot for people. That's why he liked to do things like that, to make them happy, because that's sometimes all he could give. But he would give you his all. He would give you his best. He would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. And I don't know. He was that type of person. He was at work one day and he got broken. He fell from a ladder, broke his ankle. It was a open fracture, left pilon. It required a lot of work. It needed lemmy wires, if I'm saying that correctly, a rod
Mhm.
up the bone, hardware screws. They were Smith and Wesson hardware screws. The
Okay.
doctor told Andy, pay attention to swelling, pay attention to an ordinary, well, weird pain is what Andy said to us. He said to pay attention to your leg. He said it's going to be important. This doctor did all kinds of different surgeries on people, but he knew orthopedic bones. He knew what could happen. So he told him to watch it when he left the hospital after that week of surgeries and everything. So he come home on blood thinners, he and an antibiotic.
And that
He
was August of 2020. So the
right.
pandemic just started. Or
Yeah, like
yeah,
I think we had just began hearing the word COVID. But if you would have looked in a Lysol can, you would have seen it somehow
yeah,
or another. But anyways,
or bleach. Hmm.
right. So that surgery went well. I feel like had COVID never come around, then we would have had our second surgery a lot sooner than December. What happened was he began to develop pain. Um, he had noticed that the hardware was poking out of the skin. He has correspondence back and forth with the doctors. That he's got pictures, and I think these are the screws. And in October of 2020, they seen in the X-rays and in a follow-up that the screws were protruding and backing out. Dr. Seligson had told Andy that he had told the hospital, numerous times that those screws kept messing up. Um, I didn't pay attention though to that conversation that Andy had with me at the time because it's about hardware screws in a bone. I was listening clearly because I know what he said, but now it resonates so much differently because I see hardware screws backing out of a bone and like bone fragments coming with it. And I also see that those have to go somewhere.
Hmm.
So it's a lot more scary. I wish I would have understood it better. Um, COVID again, I think that was the reason why the surgery wasn't until December because this procedure, this X-ray was in October and he didn't have his surgery till December of 2020. And that was after numerous times trying to contact the doctor. I think November he was sent an email, sorry, short staff due to COVID. Um, we'll get that surgery scheduled. And then I think it was 2 weeks to a month later, the surgery was scheduled, and he had it December the 8th on his birthday
Hmm.
of 2020. So,
So after the surgery, so there's a recovery time. He goes back to work,
but
and
again,
then
COVID prevented like the actual follow ups the way that they should be with the
yeah,
doctor. And,
exactly. And so he's still having trouble. And in February of 2021,
yeah,
um, we end up with what he takes a picture of this because he's having problems with his foot. Um, it there's clearly a physical something physically is going wrong here. There the discolorization and stuff. And the sutures that haven't healed. So he takes a picture of his foot at the time. So I want you to describe two things for me.
okay.
What what you at the time, what you all were thinking about this, and then go into what you know now about this picture.
At the time, he broke his bone badly and had to have a lot of work. It was going to hurt. Um, at the time, it was just a broken leg that he was going to get better from. And I think he thought differently. I think going through his phone, he thought there was an issue. looking at that picture before, I just thought it was him taking a picture. I didn't. Now when I look at that picture, I see a completely different picture than I did before. Because now that I've had to do all of this work because of COVID and the PrEP Act and nobody trying to fight to help me talk for him, I found out that that foot right there, it has no blood flow to it. And you can clearly see where the blood flow stops. You can clearly see where to go to fix it. It wouldn't have needed a lot of investigating because his foot actually got bigger. It was so much bigger than when he originally broke it. As we began dealing with this issue, if you look at the sutures, that is not iodine. It's the color that this. And I remember, so I reached out to doctor after the Grace Share case. I heard Dr. Burdine's testimony on the stand, and I was like, for some reason, I listened, and I did listen to every bit of it, but when he said Grace breathing was the only thing, her fight to breathe was the only keeping her alive, it just hit me. And I was like, that doctor sounds pretty smart. Maybe I need to go to him. Yeah, okay. I have wild thoughts. I know. Who's going to reach back out to little me here in Kentucky? But I had to at least try. I mean, at least the only thing that he could do is just not respond back or say no. So I did. I searched and searched and searched, and I found the email. And about 2 days later, I told him, I would like for him to look at my brother's case, that there is so many things that are similar to the Grace case that are in my brother's case also. And
what did he tell you about this picture? Because he saw this picture.
So he saw this picture. Right, he told me, he said that foot has no blood flow. And he goes, he first tells me the issue, and then he goes, and this is what I base my decision on. That's how he always will. He'll start with the conversation and he'll say, and this is what I base my decision on. It's not me. He looks and he investigates. He said that picture right there. And I looked at it and I thought, well, how? It's a picture. What? And he said, there's no blood flow. He said, look at it. He said, it's good. It's a complete different color than the ring around. He said, it shows you exactly where to go. And if you look right there, there are the sutures. It's right. It's common sense. If you want to say you need a doctor, you do, but that's common sense.
And so at the time, you didn't have Dr. Burdine's expertise. So Andy, he didn't. So at one point, he had to go to the hospital.
So he did. He went. Okay. He goes to his follow-up appointment, and he doesn't see the doctor that does the surgery due to COVID. And so this doctor, not only does she note the wrong leg that she put right, it was left. She releases him back to work, and he has not been released back to full-time work since the beginning of all of this back in August of 2020. And then she had just a fracture, but Dr. Sella makes sure to go into detail what kind of break that was. He was very specific with it to Andy. I don't think he was as specific. I don't know. I just know that his office didn't do what they should have did either, which was get a hold of him. No Doppler was ever done, but he was back to work. And then about a month later, he's having breathing issues and the swelling was bad.
Right. And so he goes to the first hospital, right? And so talk about, that was Owensboro Twin Lakes Regional Medical Center, right?
Yes, he goes there. He was having a lot of issues. Like the pain was worse that day. The aspirin wasn't helping the pain at all. The pain medicine wasn't helping the pain. But not only that, it was his breathing. I've been trying to pay attention to his breathing the whole entire time, that his leg had hurt because I knew that that was an issue if we started having breathing problems. So I had him go, and couldn't go in with him because of COVID. They said, we'll call you, we'll let you know. But I got a text from him about an hour later that said the big white male nurse said, what he said, I told them my leg hurt, and the big white nurse, I think he said male nurse, said, we're not worried about your leg right now. We're worried about saving your life. And so now I think that back at that, and it makes me angry because they didn't even know his leg was hurt, and they didn't save his life.
Mhm.
And that's why he went. So he goes into this hospital and he tells them that his leg hurts, and they disregard what he's saying. They change the narrative to what they kind of want to lead it toward. I think they worked around certain doctors. Certain doctors are good doctors. Not every doctor that we speak of is bad.
Yeah.
This one particular doctor, he started him on antibiotics. He noted that he had already been to that hospital for that same issue back in
Sure.
January. And, remember back to COVID time, anytime you went to a doctor's appointment or to the ER, what's the first thing that you would have? A COVID test.
They want to swab you. Yeah.
Right. And so we have all these negatives. Even at this hospital, they're starting it. He's diagnosed with bacterial pneumonia, with sepsis. That's even brought up is the pneumonia unspecified organism. They started him on antibiotics and a steroid. And then, we could still, at this point, only the person that took him could go in and see him. But since he went in alone, I was able to go in and see him on the 14th. His appetite was better. He actually wanted me to try to come back, which I told him, no, we're not going to try to break the rules. He wanted me to go to Subway and get him, I think it was one of those protein bowls or whatever, which I was thankful that he was hungry. But I told him, no, you need to eat the food here. They may have you on something specific. We got to get that leg fixed. We knew it was his leg the whole entire time. And
yeah, because he was otherwise healthy. He was 38 years old,
he
right?
had no other issues. He never got sick hardly. I don't really remember him being sick in forever. The doctors would just be like regular doctor's appointments. He didn't do it for he was sick, and then he got his leg hurt and had to start going.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was very, very healthy, and he was very active. He wasn't the type to just sit around. He moved all the time. So
he was 7 days at Owensboro Twin Lakes Regional Medical Center, and then you he was not isolated there. You could see him. You could deal with him, and COVID was negative and all of that jazz. And so
and what's important to note is that we start to schedule an emergency transfer. Emergency. On the 15th is when we began to schedule the Norton's Hospital transfer for Andy. He needed a bronchoscopy. I thought, okay, well, they're just going to check and see if maybe the bacteria's in the blood. So he needed a higher level of care. And so we wanted him to go to Norton's where Dr. Moikos, the pulmonologist, was. We had it scheduled. He had a room. EMS checked it. But the EMS driver said that the roads weren't clear enough to make it to Norton's. That the Norton's Hospital had said the room was ready, but the roads weren't clear enough. So he then calls the hospital, or however they do it, and tells them to send any medevac to Norton's because the roads aren't passable. And that's when Andy calls us on his video. He's packing his own bags. And he's telling us that he's got to go to Owensboro or he's going to die. That was his exact words. My exact words back to him was, well, that's a bit dramatic, Andy. Come on. And he said, no, that's what they said. I said, Andy, a doctor is not going to, you're going for a test. It made no sense to me. I did not understand, to me, at that point, why he was being so silly to think that if he did not go to this hospital, he was going to die. We already had it worked out. I told him again, I told him, please don't, we'll come get you. And then when the road's clear, we'll get up there. And he's like, I have to. He said to me while he's packing his bags, I don't want to die. I have to go. And he told me he loved me and that he would call me when he got there to Owensboro in Daviess County. So at noon, I guess they took him up there, and I called to register him, and they told me, don't bother calling. No news is good news. We just do it that way here. It was weird. It was crazy. So he gets up there, negative COVID, and evidently now benzodependent. The doctor gave him that on the way there, I guess, to help his nerves or whatever. They didn't say that he has COVID. They say that he has COVID before the COVID test is even done because of the timestamps. Now, I didn't notice that back then. If I would not have learned what to do and had the right people to help me, this would have went right over my head. It completely would have went right over my head. Because if you start following the timelines, they tell a complete different story. If you start reading the machines, that gets noted automatically. It tells a complete different story than the humans who are programmed now to do this protocol crap. And so with what you're showing now, I want to speak a little bit about that for a second. The COVID status flip-flop was what I want to talk about first. There is a unique number on every single test that is administered, whether it's to the same person or to someone different. If you're given 2 tests, those 2 tests are given 2 separate numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
so Andy's COVID test, it comes back as non-reactive, but it's typed in positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I said that it would have went right over my head if I wouldn't have started learning to look and pay attention to those little words and numbers. The number's identical. The unique number is the same exact test that come in non-reactive that they labeled him positive COVID for.
Right.
And
Okay.
that's the only test they did.
And that was the test that was done at Twin Lakes that was negative, right?
The negative test was at Twin Lakes. They did this test was at Owensboro. It's their test from their lab with their number. Yeah, that's the only one they did. But when I spoke up to Dr. Burdine, he said to me, he said, do you know why they sent him for the bronchoscopy? And I said, well, I just assumed to see if his leg was having issues because we figured that was the issue. He's very straightforward in a sincere way, but he goes, no, that's not the reason. And I said, well, then why would they? Why would they just want to do a test? He said, well, this particular test was done when they couldn't pull a positive from the nose. That's the second way they went, and they would do it however they would do it. He didn't go into explanation. He just said that was the second. If they couldn't pull a positive from the nose, then they would go and do it through that. And I so felt defeated at that moment for Andy, because at that moment I had lost every doctor that I thought was doing at least a few that were doing the right thing for him.
And then you found out that they weren't. And so that is the first contradiction. So, and these 3 contradictions say a lot. And so the additional contradiction here, you have sepsis. Sepsis was documented. That's obviously a hospital-acquired infection. So sepsis was documented in Twin Lakes and Owensboro records. There were a lot of things that were not treated.
Dr. Moran told me that on the 13th, which was when he was at Twin Lakes, so that was 4 days before transfer, that his lactic acid was so high and that his oxygen level was so low. He doesn't understand how it's not that he doesn't understand how he was still alive. It's just that how he was still doing as well as he was,
Right.
He was trying to keep moving around. The other 2 things if I talk about them now, we'll be jumping, but I'll go ahead and hit the points on brain death versus active life. I've learned that with brain death, you can look at machines and see life. there's ways to know if someone's dead, and there's legal ways there that have to be followed. An EEG, an apnea test, and another doctor has to do this bedside test where they test like your eyes and your ears and see if you respond to different feels and stuff. The only thing done was that bedside test, and the only thing that can be done to deem brain death accurately is the EEG if you're on paralytics and other medications that
Which
are
he was on a lot of them. Which
right.
he was on a lot.
He was on a lot of them. He was on 8 different medications. And then the death timeline discrepancy, we can get to that later on if you want, but it's very important to pay attention to the brain death versus active life as you listen to Andy's story, because his words, the words of the hospital, may not tell the story, but when you learn to read the machines, it's a complete different story. And I wish every person out there would just learn. I hate that we have to do that, but read everything, little bitty everythings.
So at the second hospital, he was isolated. He was by himself. What other kind of things? There was a lot of back and forth with nurses and doctors and trying to, get quality care for him. And talk a little bit about, they were hell bent on doing the COVID protocol on Andy, regardless of what he went into the hospital for.
So I think the fear first got him, the fear of you go here or you die. That was the very first initial, I call it the shell shock. He's already thinking that in his head. Okay, what's wrong with me? And he didn't ask questions because I always went with him to the doctor. I'm telling you, when I tell you that we did everything together, and that phone was his lifeline also, and he kept us on that video call constantly. We started asking a lot more questions. Who's not going to ask questions? And the more questions we would ask, the madder that they would get. They didn't want the questions. In fact, nobody had the same answers. And just don't call. We'll call you if something's wrong. They were very rude. No bedside manner at all. But so we're trying to explain to them about Andy's leg. Andy's explaining to them about his leg, but they tell us that they can't do anything about his leg till the COVID protocol medications are done. Did they explain that to us then? No, but the deputy coroner explained it to me. And he said that the reason that is because they are given funding. There's a 5-day, a 10-day, and I'm pretty sure one more. I don't want to say for sure on that one, but I know a 5-day and a 10-day. I feel like they weren't
21 day.
There you go. Yeah. And I feel like the way they were making this work was they weren't signing out of the EHRs with each patient until a later time where they could change it if it needed to be changed. I don't know. I see such a different picture now than before. I did back then. Yeah. I feel like I go to bed and I wake up and I'm in the cyclone, or I'm in the eye of the storm, and it just keeps pulling me.
So let's talk about they gave him a lot of drugs. So they gave him the remdesivir. What else did they give? What else did they give him out of that protocol?
The remdesivir. And I know this is the weirdest part, because the only medications I would think would be for the COVID, which would be the remdesivir and the steroid. It starts with a D. But then he was given, and no pain noted. And remember, he's not even mentioned his leg to them. He was given fentanyl, morphine, Presidex, propofol, Versed, lorazepam, diazepam.
Do you know if they overdosed him at any time with these drugs where they had to Narcan him?
So that's another thing I've learned. They don't put Narcan in the medical records.
Right.
They don't put overdose in the medical records. They use the words,
recovery drugs or
well,
recovery
this was it had a like, looking back now, it sounds like that would be for an anaphylactic shock or whatever.
Oh yeah, reversal, like a reversal type drug.
Yes,
You talking
yes,
about?
yes. And I only learned that from the Grace case because they talked about it. Dr. Burdine talked about it in her case, that she was overdosed. And you can clearly see here and here and here. But now that I know, everything was scripted.
Mm-hmm.
I would hear things after he died that was so crazy. You don't hear those simple things like he's a very sick man. Okay, well, that same quote about 10 other times. He knocked his cannula off while he was sleeping, and unfortunately his oxygen dropped. We got it back up, but he was unable to sustain it. That happened when Andy told them at least 37 times that he could not breathe with the nasal cannula. It's even shown in the records that the mask was more effective with Andy. But they say he gets better on the 20th, and they move him up to the med floor. He goes up there. We do a group chat. There's about 30 or 40 of us in that. We called it the visitation location station because I knew he was going to be getting antsy. He has some, PTSD and some bipolar from prior times, and I knew that was going to get to him, not being with us and not being around other people, being
Sure,
around
because he was
isolation.
he was close to his family. He didn't live a hermit's life, right?
No,
So
Andy Hodge never was alone, ever. He didn't like it. He just didn't like to be alone. And so, yeah, and they move him up to this floor. We have the group chat. I noticed him doing this a lot that afternoon. But we get off that chat, and I still keep talking to him. We talked till about 10. Sorry, this one takes a minute. We talked till about 10.
And this was electronically, right? That you weren't
Yes.
allowed to be at his side.
No, we could not be there. That's why I think that the phone, he kept it on video with us. It was his own phone. It was Facebook Messenger. We weren't like recording or anything. We were just having our presence there. Failure to thrive can slow you down. And we didn't want that for him. So that's what we did. And that visitation station was so that his friends could drop in and he could see them. And I don't know. It was just something different that I thought of that would maybe just make the situation better.
Sure. It was a good idea. It was a great idea, but you should have been allowed in.
Yeah, I was thankful that I did that because he got to talk to several of them for the last time. At 10 o'clock, I told him we have to get some sleep. This is on the 20th. So, he's been in the hospital now for 10 days. We've not slept well. We've been worried. We couldn't be with him. And he lives with us. So, of course, we miss his clunking around on the crutches. And he tells me that he's tired, but he's not. He don't think he can go to sleep. And again, he's doing this. He said, I just have this weird headache. And I said, well, it's probably what's going around. It's probably COVID. I don't know. Plus your leg. We got to get your leg fixed. So please just, you're almost to the end. Let's just cooperate, lay down, try to get some sleep. I'm putting my phone away. You put yours away. You need a rest. The phone always would keep his mind too busy to where he couldn't sleep. So I told him, put your phone away. And I did. I put my phone away because I knew if I didn't put my phone away, then I would continue to talk to him and he needed to sleep. So put my phone away. I slept for about 3 hours, 3 or 4. I know I was up well before like sunlight because you start getting phone calls at nighttime and they start waking you up at nighttime, not at day. You don't ever get calls during the day from the hospital, just at nighttime. That morning, I got up before 8, but at around 8 o'clock, Andy calls on his own phone. And he looks awful. And I remember remember him laying there with his phone. And he said, they said I've had a stroke, but they don't think I've had a stroke. What? What? I didn't know what to do. I said, what? That doesn't make any sense. I talked to you. So I said, look, I'm going to call the hospital and talk. I'm going to talk to the nurse. I'm going to see what's going on, and I'll call you back. He said, okay. Then he cut off the phone. So I got my phone. I wanted to see what time I talked to him last so I could tell the nurse. This made no sense. He was just fine. Oh. So I get my phone and have a picture that he had sent at 11:37 p.m. And it was a weird filtered picture. He didn't use filters ever. He didn't take selfies ever. And I was like, what? And I look in the corner, like the lip, the right side of his lip is sagging. I knew immediately what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But the records do not note anything until 1:20 a.m. A TPA was not given until almost 5 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And if I wouldn't have put my phone away, I tell myself, if I would have only seen that picture. And so I get angry with them, and I'm like, look, he was having this stroke at 11:37 p.m. And they're like, no, it's 1:20. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. Like, I have this picture and this timestamp, and he sent it to me because you all wouldn't come in there. And well, then why would you not call and alert us if you had that picture? I said, well, it isn't my place to call and alert you that your patients are having strokes. I said, it isn't my place to monitor your patients. I didn't have my phone. I think that phone was a lifeline for Andy, and I think they knew it. And I think they had to figure a way to get it away from him. Because we were asking too many questions that they didn't know the answers to.
Mm-hmm.
I want a COVID test. I want to see it. At this point, they've told me he's had a stroke. And not until 1:20 a.m., and I can prove otherwise. I want to see a COVID test because you're letting him lay up there with a sepsis in his leg, probably gangrene in his leg. You're letting him lay up there and die for what? And so that's when I started asking the tough questions. I want the COVID test. I want to see it. Well, of course, we couldn't be there or we would void his medical rights. They start telling us that he needs convalescent plasma. And, okay, give it to him. Give it to him. Give him what he needs to make him better.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be a Doppler on his leg, whether it be just give it to him. Fix him.
Right, exactly.
So,
and they were still fixated on treating COVID, not his leg. So that's even a crazy part.
Right. So with that being said, they I don't know. I get so aggravated that it was such an easy fix. And in science, medicine that they've had for years, that they've put money into research for all these things, DVTs, gangrene, sepsis, hearts, everything, that every bit went out the window.
Yeah.
Every bit of it.
Right. Right. They had the ability to treat all of these serious things, and they were focused only on treating a novel virus, which they were treating incorrectly and making it worse anyways. So so all of this happened.
This is the 21st.
This was what?
This was on the 21st, and let's keep in mind, if he's had such a catastrophic stroke, how's he calling us back with his phone?
Yeah.
How's he knowing to dial us and to how to hang up the phone? He did that the whole day, and that's what got weird. He did it the whole day. The last thing he said to Dad, he called, and he said, "Dad." Dad said, "What, son?" He said, "When I get out of here, will you come pick me up and take me to Walmart and get me some grapes?" Dad said, "Sorry."
That's okay.
Said, "Of course I will. You just get better and I'll get you the whole grapevine." And he got off the phone, and about 2 hours after that, we found out he was vented on a ventilator. But what was weird was Andy and I had a conversation that day with Evan, the nurse, and Evan had told us, this was more of the script, I do believe. He told me he was a very sick man. He said not to be surprised if they called within the next day and a half, that to put Andy on a ventilator. If that happened, he had a 50-50 chance of surviving it. And I said, "Wait a minute. First off, he's right there. Talk to him. You talk to him." And Andy said, and Evan, if you're listening to this, Joseph Evan Riney, you know that it's true. And he said, "Evan, who will say when I wake up if I have to do it?" He said, "Well, you're in your right mind. You would get to make the decision." Okay, he just had a stroke. How's he in his right mind?
Yeah, and he's medicated up the wazoo, right? So
Andy said, "My sister, that's who I want to, if I have to do it." And he said, "Ellie," kind of just couldn't say a word. And he said, "Ellie." I said, "What?" "You have to do it." He said, "If they call you, that's happened to me, and Dad gets the call, it'll kill him. And you're going to already be a nut if something happens to me, so it has to be you. And Dad won't think it just has to be you." And I said, "Okay." Okay. I almost thought I was saying okay in a situation that I was never going to have to be a part of. Like, that's not ever going to happen. But I said, "Okay." I said, "You just please tell me, just do your part. Keep your lungs moving until I can get a hold of the doctor, because they're not trying to get a hold of him, but I will. I'll keep trying. But you have to let your lungs rest. And you have to, if that means the ventilator, then that's the ventilator. And I'm not going to unplug it. So it'll be like a rest for you, like a nap. You'll go to sleep and it'll be time to wake up." And so it's not shown whether he gave his permission to be on the vent. They didn't call and ask my permission for him to be vented. It's just he was vented. But when I'm talking about that timeline kind of pathway, if you look at it, you see why he's vented. It's because he fell asleep and he knocked the cannula off his nose. The monitoring that they were supposed to be doing, they obviously weren't, because his oxygen dropped all the way down, and they got it up, but he was unable to sustain it. A nurse notes that. The other doctors
they would have been able. He would have been able to sustain it. That happens all the time, and people are able to sustain it. That's not a ventable offense. I mean,
right. That's why I
knocked my cannula off and my oxygen just at home when they were saving me, and my oxygen got into the 50s, and they were able to get it back up by putting the cannula in my mouth.
Because you went home.
And then, right. And so, like, it happens that there's no need to vent somebody just because people get CPR all the time. like, and they don't get vented. So,
And that really bothered me. I couldn't understand for the life of me, if he couldn't breathe, why would he knock off his cannula? But Gail, do you want to let them know why? Because
well, it's just, it happens in your sleep, right? Because you move or you whatever, and then the cannula moves. With the mask, you don't really have like like a rebreather, let's say, you don't have that issue because it's on your face, right? So if it moves at night, you're still
no,
you're
Andy
still
asked for the mask, and they denied it
there.
to him 37 times. It had to be that nasal thing, and he has a deviated septum, and so he
Yeah,
couldn't breathe through his nose anyways.
I
But
mean, yeah, that's really kind of like weird because like even if you did both, like, but what the mask is just as
the mask was
weird.
beneficial to him. It was helping his oxygen better than the nasal
Yeah,
cannula. That's another thing I couldn't understand, but it's getting ready to all make sense here in a second. It didn't to me. Not until like those little pieces, like why would he knock it off? I could not get that. But then my friend Dana, she said it comes out so strongly they don't let you breathe, that it
yeah,
won't
it doesn't.
allow
It,
you.
it doesn't, and it dries up your
Mhm.
nasal cavity, and then like blood builds up, and if they don't clear that blood, um, you know, by letting you blow your nose or clearing it out with a flush, you can't breathe anyways because the blood's blocking it. There's so much blood
Yeah.
in your nose.
So
Mhm.
that's the next thing after that is he's just on the ventilator. They didn't tell us why, other than his oxygen dropped below 70%.
Or whatever.
Um,
Like that's not a reason to vent somebody if you can get it back up. That's crazy to me.
right.
So,
But
so they vent.
they vented him, but it's also like the same circle. It's not everybody that works there. It's only a certain few because that's who's in his records.
and,
The next
and they were already giving him medications that hinder your breathing as well, right? Like pain medications
fentanyl,
and
morphine, yeah, all that stuff. And for
nothing.
no pain, I don't understand that part. Lorazepam, diazepam, okay, one or the other. At Versed, that's too much.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's a lot.
So Andy was
Wow.
given the equivalent medication of two things. A, they could sedate a full size horse with the medication, or B, Andy was given a lethal injection the way that they do criminals on death row. He was given a cocktail medication that overdosed his system, that was already contaminated, that already was full of carbon dioxide that he could not rid out. When they put him on the ventilator, they ended his fight to breathe, and then he needed to fight to breathe for those lungs to be okay till we got the bone doctor there. They weren't trying to reach the bone doctor. They weren't talking about the leg. I talked to them numerous times about the leg. His leg, you all need to do a Doppler. That lower left leg, I don't know what exactly is wrong with it, but something's
Yeah,
wrong with it. They did note that I was fixated on that there was an issue with his leg. Um,
yeah, like a blood clot that could cause a stroke.
well,
Like,
exactly. I finally told him on the 23rd, look, you run the Doppler or I'll cut my finger off. And before I bleed to death, I will come up there and I will run the damn Doppler myself and I will figure out what's going on with his leg, because he may have COVID right now, but he didn't. And he
or may
didn't
not.
have COVID a month ago, and he didn't have COVID 2 months ago, and
He didn't-
convalescent plasma, but he doesn't even have the antibodies. We
Yeah,
found out that with that convalescent plasma, there was noted by the doctor, COVID antibody negative, convalescent plasma needed. Um, on the day of the 23rd is the day that his respiratory therapist called me from the other facility. I do not know her personally. She got my number from a friend. And I said, hello. Of course, I'm in this weird cyclone type, I don't know. And she says, Ellie. I said, yes. She said, get Andy out of that hospital today. And I said, what? She said, get him out of there. Something's going on.
was he vented already?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I said,
it's
I
almost
don't
impossible.
understand what you're saying. And she said, well, she said, we were told we're not allowed to vent at Twin Lakes. She said, we know how. We're capable of doing it. We have the ventilators. But we're told that even if we suspect a ventilator is needed, that we are to send these patients straight to Owensboro, no question. And if we ask questions, we're shown where the door is, and we're told that there's other people that could fill our positions. Get him out of here. And I did not understand what world I had woke up into.
Because there's an incentive for those ventilators, and hospitals that don't vent and send to another hospital, they share in that incentive. They get a piece of that incentive. So that is. So how many days was he? And he was restrained at times and things like that.
He was restrained, and I didn't understand. Once I talked to Dr. Burdine, I was able to look not at their words, because that's nonsense. That's a narrative that Andy wasn't a part of making. Right. When I look at what is automatically submitted to the EHRs, I would never, ever have never caught this, but Dr. Burdine taught me to look at the machines for life.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. Look at the machines for life. How do I do that? There was a 5-hour gap after he passed. But I'm jumping ahead.
So let's talk about that. So how many days was he on the vent?
He was on the ventilator from the 21st to the 2nd. They say that he died on the ventilator. That day that he died was the day prior. I had spoke with Dr. Seligson, finally, his ortho doctor. It was March 1st. And he told me, he said, you tell them to keep him vented. I'm going to come to him. I have rights at that hospital. It's easier on Andy if I just go to him. So I did. I called them immediately. I felt like I'd saved the day. Great big sister. You better not ever do this to me again. So I call him back and I tell him exactly what the doctor had said. He's coming to Andy tomorrow. Keep him on the ventilator, and he'll come up and he'll check his leg. Maybe it's not his leg, but if it is, then that's okay. We'll just get it checked. And I kind of got the sense that wasn't okay if Andy was to make it. Even questioned, I feel like you all don't want me to be right in this situation, and I don't understand why. It's like they listened to me say that to them, and they never responded. Almost like, yeah, that's what we want, and we're not going to. They never had questions answered, ever. And when they did, they made no sense. Like I'm making right now, it makes not a lot of sense. But it's because that's what they were telling me.
Right, exactly.
So.
And you're not in there every day like you should be allowed. So to make you have to go by the lies that they're telling or the lies that they're putting in the medical records and the contradictions, really. And so, so there was a lot of contradictory stuff that happened around the time and the date and all of that he died. So, they start looking at, it looks like they started looking at brain death. It's a myth, guys.
So what they did, the brain death is weird. That's where they didn't do the EEGs, they said. And they were going to do this bedside test. And evidently he failed all of the test things that they did, but that's because he was paralyzed.
Right.
He was sedated to a point where he was there.
They put him in
everything they said.
Yeah. They put him in a state of being of the appearance of death, which is, y'all, that should frighten you, because that could be anybody. And it's so, you see it a lot now where people who were declared brain dead are waking up and blah, blah, blah. And that's because they put you in a state and then they declare you dead, but you're not really dead. And then your body fights back. You're alive. And they're telling everybody around you that, oh no, brain death. We don't do scans. Why wouldn't you do scans? If you drug somebody into a coma and then you're like, oh, they're not responding, we're going to call their name 3 times and then we'll see if they answer, right? Like that's crazy.
Medication cocktail. And given 30 minutes to wake up, that doesn't cut it. At least a day.
We're going to swab the eyelid, right?
And when he would begin to move, they would give him some more medicine. Give
Yeah,
him some more medicine.
right.
Give him some more.
Sedate him more. Sedate him more.
And I want to
Uh,
just stress the importance of, can you imagine laying there with your eyes closed? You hear things like all the machines for one. You haven't been around your family for over 10 days. You know you have this issue. You know no one's listening, and now you don't know why you can't wake up. What the
yeah.
crap is going on? And
You can't speak, and you can't fight back, and you can't fight for your life, and
your lifelines are taken away from you. The phone.
Yeah.
I think they had to get rid of those phones because people were seeing too much.
Yeah.
It was a liability.
Yeah, I think so too. I know so because I survived, but right, I hear you. And, and the isolation does many things. It gets rid of witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sure nobody can contradict what's in the medical records.
I mean, it's a very well thought out plan.
Dead people don't talk. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's an opportunity to gaslight the family and gaslight the patient into believing that there's something worse going on than originally came to be. And then there's that added component where it strips away hope from the family, and it strips away hope from the patient who's isolated, because it's yes, it's very systemic. They have, we call it the Deadly Hospital Playbook, which can be found on the website betrayalprojectusa.org. It is and it's scrolling on the bottom, this deadly playbook that the hospital, all the tactics, it was a modus operandi, the way that they systematically went about doing all of these things to lead to the death. And so there's a lot of weird things about Andy's death. The time, the earlier, the charting showing earlier death pronouncement attempts as early as 1:41 a.m. And that was never communicated to you. They didn't call you and say, "Hey, get your family here. We don't think he's going to make it."
On the 23rd of February is when that began. That's the day that the doctor. No, it was a few days before the doctor had asked me for the organs. Yes, Coda was at his bedside, and that's the day that Nimbex was administered. Sarah Spicer was on site, and she said, "I'll be on site," and I have my phone on me. That's in the flow charts. Now, does it just pull that up when you search it in the Word? No, because they've got it in there some way where you have to go through every single flow chart to see, exactly what you're looking for. Coda was contacted 6 different times with Andy. 3 times are noted in the charts. The other 3 times I found out on my own by calling Coda. Shortly after that, they changed their name.
And he was not an organ donor.
No, he was not an organ donor. And I want to clear one thing up real quick. I believe that it is a great thing to do for someone if they truly want to be an organ donor. I am not against that at all. I am not saying it's a bad thing at all. But what I'm saying, from the family member of the person who may not have been dead, think of it with empathy. Think of us not knowing his narrative. Think of us not knowing what happened in those 5 hours on the 2nd from, let's say, 11 to 6. What was going on? Because there was no charting. He dies at 6:40. What are they still doing with him at 11? He wasn't sent to the morgue because the timeline shows me, the timestamps show me that the nurse was told to keep him and all of his belongings in the room until the funeral home arrived. None of this is okay. Not even half of this is okay to do to someone. And when you're already in a spin of a cyclone because you don't understand what's going on, and you do have all these tactics coming at you one at a time, it's like you get up long enough to catch your breath, and then they stomp you back down and start throwing other weird words at you that you don't understand. And what's so crazy is what Andy really died from was never even mentioned. They never even checked it, other than they found a clot on the 23rd. And when I asked them what they were going to do about it, they just told me nothing, because unfortunately, due to COVID, this is what they're finding out happens. Okay, so we just stop? When is I've never even seen a scary movie. Well, I don't watch scary movies, but a TV show, soap operas, you don't ever see them just stop because they find the issue. I don't know. I couldn't believe it. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? But they just stopped. And then when I finally got a hold of his bone doctor and he was coming in, they immediately that day scheduled the ethics committee. And the ethics committee changes his code status. He was a full code picked by himself. You cannot open an EHR for someone until they pick their code status. On Epic anyways, I've checked.
Yeah.
And so he picked that on his own, not me. I know what he wanted.
So he was a full code and they changed him to a do not resuscitate.
Right. And so when I'm asking Dr. Burdine I need to know if this sounds awful. I have already experienced this. So yeah, I want to know everything. Was he alive on the second? Was he alive or was he dead? I need to know that. And so he was not dead. He had heart tones. That was noted in the records. And you don't have heart tones if you're brain dead. And he was still left on the ventilator. I don't understand it. The machines do not tell the same story as the people. Paula Brazier, RN, is the one who called his death. She's the one who signed the provisional death report, and she doesn't exist. That's known as ghost charting. This evidently is a word that has its own definition, even. I can't imagine a word having a definition and not having a consequence. If you look at it, see at the top, it says medical certifier of certificate, Paul Brazier. So if you look on down there, you see where it says it has the deputy signer of the person who's the second witness of the death. Well, that says Paula Brazier RN, and she doesn't exist. I pretended to be a florist. I was told that there was or never has been anybody that works there by that name. Okay, then I guess my brother's not dead because she's the one that called it. So I also talked to the deputy coroner, and he also told me no, that person did not exist. But ghost charting is when a doctor knows that there's an issue, that the family has legal grounds to stand on, like really good legal grounds to stand on, and he wants to wash his hands of it. He doesn't want any part. So he throws a name in there that's not going to come up in those little tools that search, or people's not going to catch on. I wouldn't have caught it, but I didn't like that doctor at all. He was very rude. No, he's the one that told me they didn't do EEGs. He's the one that told me that he wasn't doing an ultrasound, a Doppler on his leg, but he would go use his stethoscope. He then came back and told me that he had strong pulses in his ankles. Okay, then he's not dead. Go away from him. Quit trying to take his... I started making recordings, and you hear me in one of those recordings. I sound like crazy, but you hear me in the background. They're talking to Dad, and I say, they're wanting to take something from him. This makes no sense. In that call, they admit to the phone being a liability. Well, why? If you're doing your job. If you're not.
Yeah, why are you worried, right?
Right. How are we supposed to be there for him? This is his own phone. The nurse hooked it up. Why is it all of a sudden a big issue? Well, here's why. Because in that chart, you should have always noted a gag reflex. It should always be talked about in every single day, but it wasn't. On the 27th, we had I think it was like 14 and a half hours. I was able to get his phone to go run constantly. The nurse set it up toward the monitors where I could actively keep up with his blood pressure. He was responding to my voice. You don't do that if you're dead. At one point, Rachel, she comes in and she's sucking his vent. I see him gag. And I even noted, I'm like, oh my gosh, he just gagged. And she says to me, yeah, I'm just sucking the back of his throat out to make sure that he doesn't suck all this water back down. Okay, well, first off, your body doesn't produce fluids if you're dead. Did I know that to her then? No. But common sense was kind of telling me, I know for a fact that you don't have a gag reflex. And so on that day, She ends up being the nurse that goes and stops our video call and says that it's a liability and she doesn't feel comfortable working in front of it. And then she notes gag reflex, none noted. She knows full well. I saw it and
That you
called it
saw
out
it.
to her.
Yeah.
I called it
That you
out.
saw it. Yeah. See, that's the liability, is that you might see things
Yeah.
that they're lying about, right? You can catch them in their lies. So before we go on to the next part of the interview, I just want to point out two things, and just so people are aware. So you note here also it says body and blood, or blood and body fluid precautions advised. Check yes, right? And then and the whole controversy or the contradiction about the COVID test, and then so Andy passed, and they the obviously the time of death is
Questionable.
questionable, and how they did it, and of course now there are investigations about organ
The same
harvesting.
organization that I was dealing
Yeah.
with.
Yep, exactly, because what sparked the investigation was another man in Kentucky who woke up as they were trying to take his organs, and the doctor said sedate him more, and the nurse was like, what are you talking about, he's alive, like, right? So that is this there's no doubt that it's happening, y'all. And so this, you sent me this picture too, which is Andy's toe tag.
Right.
This isn't Andy's feet, right? This is just
No,
the
it
toe
is.
tag.
No, that not
So
his feet, but yeah, it's an element I thought that the toe tag needed because it was such a big key piece. Like sometimes it isn't about the happy ending. Sometimes it's about the story. So if you look
right,
at the story tells me the actual facts of the story tell me that I can prove with that toe tag right there that he didn't have COVID. Check
right,
here, patient expired from communicable disease, and it is not checked.
and there is no check.
No
There's
check
no
mark.
check there.
I could prove he didn't have it from their own records before they could prove that he did have it with their own records legally. I mean, I could legally do that. He did not have COVID. So yeah, that's his toe tag. And the only thing that I can do now, because obviously I don't want to say I've lost the fight because
No,
he
because you're
will
fighting.
never lose. He is up there cheering me on every step of the way. He's leading me to people. You and the Betrayal Project, given us an outlet to let their story be told, in the hopes that someone, if it's just one person, will hear one of these stories and it'll help them to see, hey, wait, I think
Maybe
I was almost murdered at this hospital.
or
I never
my loved one was
thought that
murdered.
this happened. Right. So many people out there are, I think, like me. I don't think that transparency and accountability come into play in their life because they had never have had to deal with it. And then you hit this one part, and I feel like I had to grow into an adult overnight.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, so we have to, and these stories do serve to change that confirmation bias. So let me ask you to talk about some things like really want you to talk about so Andy was a father, Andy was a son, Andy was a brother. I want you to talk a little bit about about some of the biggest impacts, right? So this is Andy's son, right? So
Look at his
so
eyes. You can see how lost that he looks.
yeah. So
Sad.
his children have lost their dad. All three children have lost their dad.
And he was a single dad at that. So
Yeah. You've lost your brother. Your father and your mother have lost their son. Taken away from them tragically, and without should never have happened, and there's nobody investigating to say, oh, we need to hold accountable the people who killed Andy.
no.
And so So there's two things. So how are the how are Andy's kids doing today? This is
We're almost 5 years down the
4 years.
road.
Yeah, right,
Yeah,
exactly 4.5 years. So how are they doing today? How old were they when he died, and how are they doing today?
So the boys are they're gonna be 22 this year. So the boys were, what was that, Kevin? They were 17.
Yeah,
The
at
boys
the
were
time.
17, and the girls were 12 and 10. 12 and 10. Because we always counted our kids all together as one big
Yeah.
bunch. Because they were, anyways. I would like to say that we're 100% better. I would like to say. I would like to say that we don't ever have those bad days. Yesterday was a good day. I didn't have, like, I could talk about Andy to the kids or to whoever, mom and dad, and I didn't want to cry, or I could make jokes and be funny. But then there's today, and you never know what day you're going to get until you wake up and face the day. I can't imagine what those kids feel. They're so strong, and whoever come up with this horrible, horrible
Protocol.
dehumanization,
Yeah.
they should be ashamed of themselves, because what they did was to a good man, a good daddy, a good son. He was the best little brother ever. It's not fair. And he did not deserve. He was a body. He was a person. He had a soul. He
Hmm.
would have give you those organs if you needed them, even if it meant he wouldn't make it. 9 times out of 10, I can almost guarantee you he would have gave you the organ, but he wouldn't have been okay with what they did to him.
Yeah, exactly.
He wanted to live.
So you told me if you could maybe briefly, as we wrap up, go into this. You told me a story that kind of, I felt, encapsulates a memory, very meaningful memory that you had towards the end of Andy's life, about a tree that got struck by lightning. And can you kind of just talk, just, maybe in a couple
So,
minutes,
yeah,
just.
he loved to be outside. He cut trees down. He liked to burn wood. He would burn it. He was building the kids a bridge down at the creek. He just liked to stay busy. He had of course, was broken, but it was not going to slow him down. So he's down there on his lawnmower cutting wood. It's raining. He's clearly not paying attention. And I hollered for him to come up to the house, that it was raining. He was going to get pneumonia. He didn't come up. So I went down there, and I saw a tree that was struck by lightning. My papa always, he would tell us, I don't even know why he would bring this up, because I've never seen one, but I just remember him saying it numerous times. Well, we need to find that tree struck by lightning to make sure this is where we're supposed to be, just joking around. And I said, oh my gosh, I think that tree was struck by lightning. And Andy had made the joke even, well, good thing it's here, since this was where we've lived our whole life, because my husband and I bought mine and Andy's childhood home. So I told him, I said, when it stops raining, we're going to bring the kids down here and we'll cut it and we'll see. Because the story that Papa would say is, if it's struck by lightning and it still lives, then you found your home, because it catches the storm and it throws it back out, and it protects everything around it. That it's strong enough to survive the storm. And so I go back in, tell him to come on. Okay. I said, do not cut that tree down. I want to do it with you. Okay. Go back in. And then 30 minutes later, I look, and here he comes up the hill. And I guess his lawnmower had run out of gas, or for some reason he couldn't use it. He had a rope tied around his waist. And on the other end of the rope, he had a basket. And I see him in my head coming up the hill on those crutches saying, you're right. You're right. This is the weirdest thing. And I said, what are you talking about? And he pulled one of these out of the basket. He said, it caught the storm, and it makes it hard. We're where we're supposed to be. And
It makes it
hard. He had cut 13 pieces of it. And he brought it up to me, and he was like, look, we can give these up for Christmas gifts. They're pretty neat. And so we took them, and we kind of set them out so they could dry really good. And then a few months later, he was gone. And it just sucks because he was the tree that caught the lightning. It's just crazy that God gives you those moments. And if you don't take a minute to take them in, you miss it all.
And so you've been working hard to get his story out, and people can find you on Facebook at
Dead Serious Kind of Not the Indie Effect is what we do right now. I'm working on a website. I will always tell Andy's story. His side of the story deserves to be told as much as theirs. I want my kids to see that it's okay to fight hard for something you truly believe in. If you believe it 100% with your soul, you fight it, and you fight for whatever. I want that. I want their strength to be 1,000,000 times stronger than ours. I don't want them to ever have to go through anything like this. And they model the parents. So we
and for truth and accountability as well. And
absolutely.
you've created this Pixels and Pulses, and it has actually been very healing to a lot of other victims that we've come across. You've created one for me with my dad just passing and my daughter, and it's quite it's his son. What's his son's
Logan? His son's name is Logan, and the song is Brother's Path. That's the name of the song. And he explains it to me as it's like he being a brother, but then me having a brother and losing a brother. He's very, very good with his songs. He has wrote one a couple weeks ago with a little bit more about me, but you hear Andy at the very beginning, and I didn't understand it at first because I wasn't paying attention, he said. But Andy says in the song, he says, well, tell her to call me. I want to tell her. I want to tell how pretty it is, or something like that. I want to tell her what it looks like. That's what it was.
And so
he wrote it about Andy calling me and telling me what it's like up there, because he said sometimes he knows I miss him so bad, and he knows that I've helped him, and he wants to be able to help me, and maybe that song will do it. And let me tell you, it sure does. But
so I'm going to play this 2-minute clip of the Pixels and Pulses, and the heartbeat is from Andy's.
The heartbeat is from his EKG.
Nobody be all shocked that there's a swear or two in the song. This young man has, is writing stuff from his heart, and I think it's pretty good. And
I think it's important to hear it. What a child feels.
I think so too. I think it really. That's why I'm going to play the one with the music, and we'll kind of wrap up after this. But I just want people to see what you're out there creating. I think it's it's a last hug, turning these pixels into a pulse and giving people a last hug. So
something I can do to make the situation better. That's all I can do.
Yeah, some of the people in here are also victims who've lost their loved ones. Yes. So we're going to watch this. It's going to mute our microphones while it puts on. So here you go.
I'm up here above. Let me say I'm just proud. And your brother below. But he's here to make sure y'all don't go through this on your own. They will all be your own. I do this for me cause it helped me not cry when I feel your presence is bringing me down. You think I'll be fine when you're on from the sky, but deep down I know that you ain't really around. I wish these walls were made of bone and bends instead of concrete, cause I would knock them down. I only talk thinking that the fact you're really gone. But it makes it harder with the fact we don't got mom. And no, she's not dead, she's still around, but she's not up in our life. So tell me how that sounds. It shouldn't really be this way, but it's up to me to show them how to get through the shit. Because in life, yeah, we taking the hits. I know that I've done some real stupid shit, but I will not tell you that it's something I ain't done or something I did. I know I joke and I know that I can, but this shit is really real. I know it's up in their heart, it's something they feel. Tell me right now, do you see the fate? Because in my life, yeah, I've only seen real. I never see people playing.
I love it.
I do. So people can reach out to you if they want to have something like that done with some of their pictures, and maybe they have a specific song that they love. And I hope they will reach out to you about that service and
anything I can do. Reach out to me if you need help with anything about your records, or if you need help to get in touch with the Patrol Project. Get in touch with me if you can't figure it out. I will lead you there, and I will help you all.
Yeah.
So,
and and now you're volunteering for Betrayal Project too. So I want to invite other people to put in their stories like you did at betrayalprojectusa.org. There, click the we're going to be adding stories to the website. That part is not up yet, but you can submit your story. You can find out more information about the playbook. You can find out about the 11 victims that are on the board. And we're adding more content. So excuse our mess on the site, but we just soft launched today. So go ahead and, at least, get your story in, schedule an interview like this one.
It's very healing. It's healing and it's helping people. We can all work together. We're not alone. That alone in itself makes you feel better.
And I appreciate, all you do out there, Ellie, and I appreciate you telling your story.
I appreciate you and everything you do and all this hard work, because I am a frontline witness to watching you. And honestly, like, your story is it's great. I know that there's some bad parts, but you've got a great story to tell. You survived something that I only know one other person survived, and she did not come out as well as you. She's doing better, but you got your man that got you home. He got you. He knew what to do, and thank God for that. Thank God that we are together, and that there's the rest of us, because all of our stories together will complete that whole blanket.
That's right. And I always say, hundreds of stories that won't make them cower and change things and pay attention. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, 1.6 million were murdered in hospitals. And if we had tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people coming forward, you bet your butt they would pay attention. And this,
they made the decision to do something they shouldn't have did. So now a consequence should come, because nobody should behave that way. And when we'll get there.
That's right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail.